Hi, this is Tisch Aitken, and it is July 18th, 2025. Mercury is officially retrograde. It retrograded early this morning at 12:45 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time and last night at 9:45 p.m. Pacific. And you can customize to your time zone, but it retrograded right at the world point, meaning at 15 degrees and 34 minutes of the fixed fire sign of Leo. And that brings a bigger energy. It impacts everybody in a big way, and especially people with 2 degrees to 17 degrees of the fixed signs. And the fixed signs are Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. Mercury retrogrades at 15.5 degrees of Leo, and then it stations direct on August 11th at 4 degrees and 15 minutes of Leo. It will clear its shadow on August 25th and get back to 15 degrees and 34 minutes of Leo, and then it leaves Leo altogether on September 2nd. Mercury in Leo is very passionate. Leo rules the heart chakra and what makes the heart happy. It rules creativity, love, speculation, romance, fun. It rules self-expression, and it also rules children and your inner child. And it is an excellent time for reconnecting to what makes your heart happy in a very dark time in history and a dark time in the world. But there's a lot of fire in the sky right now, and by the end of the month, 5 points will be retrograde in total. So there's an incredibly reflective energy. And you have to bear in mind that Uranus, which is the maverick planet, the planet of brilliance and chaos and excitement and surprise, has recently entered the sign of Gemini. And it entered Gemini on July 7th, and it will be there through November 7th. Now, I had to think on my feet, which is very much like Uranus and Gemini, because I was going to say June 9th, which is when Jupiter, the grand benefic, ingressed into the mutable water sign of Cancer. But that's another story. So we had the last planet change signs this year. And Uranus in Gemini is thinking on your feet. It's instant energy. It's spontaneity. It is very intellectual and very communicative energy, because Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury, and it rules community and technology and innovation and invention. And Mercury rules the sign of Gemini, and Mercury just retrograded, but we have Venus, the planet of love and beauty, transiting in the sign of Gemini through the end of the month, through June 30th, when it then enters the sign of Cancer. And so we've got Uranus newly in Gemini, and Mercury retrograde is answering back to, or they're both kind of answering to one another, to Uranus in Gemini. And there is a lot of spontaneity, but a lot of chaos with that. There could be unexpected news without a question. We've got Mercury in Leo is also about finding your courage. The cowardly lion. You need to find your courage in a very turbulent world. We're in the new age of Aquarius, and Uranus is the modern ruler, and it has just changed signs, and it wants to move things so quickly. And your thoughts could race. It could affect your nervous system. You could feel very anxious. You could have trouble sleeping. Yet we've already had Neptune, which rules dreams and sleep and fantasy and illusion and imagination. Neptune retrograded on July 4th at 2 degrees and 11 minutes of the cardinal fire sign of Leo. And that's a story that began on March 30th when Neptune got to the world point, which is 0 degrees of the cardinal signs, Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. And it's recently retrograded, and it will return to the sign of Pisces on October 22nd. So it's still finishing up a lot of karmic baggage and old memories and painful things we haven't dealt with as well. It's still mourning process that we need to complete. And Saturn is working with Neptune and Aries to form an entirely new dream, a new identity for all of us, each and every one of us, because the world point hits everybody, even if we don't have planets or angles at 0 degrees of the cardinal signs. And Saturn retrograded on July 13th at 1 degree and 56 minutes of Aries. It will return to Pisces on September 1st, and it will then station direct on November 27th at 25 degrees and 9 minutes of the mutable water sign of Pisces. So Saturn and Neptune are both clearing up and cleaning a lot of pain, a lot of loss, a lot of letting go. We all got a glimpse this summer, and have been getting a glimpse since late spring into the summer, of a new beginning. Saturn and Neptune at the very first sign of the zodiac, and they will meet up exactly at 0 degrees of Aries next February. Big new story for everybody and big world events. And you think back to times when Saturn and Uranus, different planets, well, Saturn is the same planet obviously, but Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius, the modern ruler, and the two met up directly on February 13th of 1988 at 29 degrees of Sagittarius, but they were for a while on and off that year transiting at 0 degrees of Capricorn, which is also at the world point. And for those of you that remember, that could have been an eventful time in your life, and ultimately I believe that did lead to the Saturn-Neptune conjunction that happened in Capricorn in November of '89 when the Berlin Wall came down. Uranus is a planet of revolution and rebellion and change and new beginnings. Well, instant change. And with Saturn, you could think instant karma, you know. But now we're working with a new dream, and things are getting dissolved and clearing path for new things. Nature abhors a vacuum. What is it? I think nature abhors a vacuum. So we want to clear space to make space for new beginnings. And Saturn and Neptune, again, returning the sign of Pisces in the fall, but they're still really close. They got very close on July 17th, and they're going to be very close the next few days. Not exact, and they didn't get exact in Pisces, which Neptune rules in modern astrology, but they're traveling together very closely. And again, it could feel difficult to structure what you're trying to build because Neptune has no boundaries. Saturn is in its fall position in Aries and really insisting that you fight harder for what you want to achieve, what you want to carve into your life, what do you want to build and structure. And Neptune, what dream are you working with? What are you manifesting in your life with hard work and responsibility, Saturn? And this month and this time is an excellent time to reflect on what you can do. Saturn is now retrograde through the end of November, and really it's retrograde for about 40% a year, so it's really more when it goes direct or when it stations retrograde. And it already retrograded a little while ago. And so it's at the end of its station, I guess, as of yesterday. But it's still a reflection time. We now have 3 planets retrograde this month that retrograded. And then Eris, which is the dwarf planet, the goddess of discord, retrogrades on July 22nd at 25 degrees and 43 minutes of Aries, another point in fire, and will be retrograde through January 2nd of next year. Eris stirs up the pot and really causes instant disruption. I feel like Eris is a composite of Mars and Uranus. It's very fiery, it's Mars' sister, but it's also very chaotic. So you can think of the two energies working together in the warrior feminine. And Eris is going to retrograde, and so we're going to feel that as well. And that can pronounce more anger as we have Sun clashing with Chiron, the wounded healer. And that occurs tomorrow at 6:48 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, bringing light on issues that need to heal. And again, with Mercury retrograde in Leo, people could be very prideful and they could not take criticism well. Leo is the king and the queen. And, pardon me. And so, Mercury in Leo is a time not to be boastful when it's retrograde. Well, we should never be, really, right? But it's not a time to think of just your ego or but about finding strength in your ego, having a healthy ego, because Chiron in Aries, which is another point that will retrograde on July 30th at 27 degrees and 10 minutes of Aries. So 4 points in Aries retrograde this month. That's pretty big, and in the sign of self and ego. And we have Mercury retrograding in Leo, which also rules the self, rules, Leo, the sun in Leo is in its rulership, and the sun in Aries is in its exaltation. Yet we have Mercury retrograde in Leo, where you may not feel as powerful, as strong, but you're re-examining how you can do the healing work with Sun clashing with Chiron, the wounded healer. It already clashed with Eris, the goddess of discord. We have Mars in Virgo meeting up with the south node of Karma on July 20th at 9:59 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and that's difficult. That can be an aspect of self-undoing, and people are feeling very emotional. This is the last week of Cancer season. There's a very impulsive energy with Uranus in a sign that is very restless and likes to change and move around and learn and communicate, and again wants to move very quickly. And with 5 points retrograde, we're getting towards the end of the month, we're moving really fast. It's also a time to say, don't be impulsive. Reflect on how you can build that new dream. Your ego is vulnerable, and that's okay. You're human. You may be very good at what you do, but you're fallible, and so am I. And, figuring out how you can maybe take positive criticism, if that's the case, or maybe how you can address those areas of your life that you don't feel so good about, and not do it in a shameful way, but in a proactive way, because 4 points in Aries are in a cardinal action-oriented sign that likes to move and charge ahead. And it's the first sign of the zodiac. It's the sign of initiation. And Saturn and Neptune will be meeting up at a degree of creativity and creation. 0 degrees of Aries, the very first sign of the zodiac. Next fall, from October 22nd through January 26th of next year, Neptune will remain at the final degree of both Pisces and of the zodiac at 29 degrees of Pisces. There will be a lot of endings, a lot of release, A lot of people passing over that are no longer there will be souls that are on the fringe that are leaving us, that are letting go, situations, relationships that are no longer serving their purpose are letting go. But we want to be centered during that time, because that is a fixed star known as Shiat, and it is very difficult, and there could be some people that want to escape with that energy, or are feeling a lot of pain and want to leave, for people that it's not their time, and you want to check in on yourself and really ground. Right now we've got a lot of fire. We've got Jupiter in Cancer through July 30th or June 30th of next year, but we've got 4 points in Aries right now. We've got Mercury in Leo through September 2nd, and the Sun ingresses into Leo on July 22nd through August 22nd. So that'll be another point in fire. And so fire is optimistic and it's buoyant in its energy, but it also can burn with rage. And again, too much pride or ego will not serve you or any of us. When Mercury retrograded, soon after, it formed what's known as a sextile to Venus in Gemini at 9:36 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. That's a very harmonious energy, and that helps to bring positive communication around problems and problem solving. And tomorrow, when Mars meets up, is tomorrow the 19th, when the Sun squares Chiron tomorrow, Jupiter will form what's known as a quintile, and that's when 2 points are 72 degrees apart. That's an aspect of creativity, and that occurs at 9:59 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. That'll be tomorrow evening, and that brings a creative energy to your healing, whether you're doing journaling or manifesting work or meditation, or you're doing energy work. Maybe you're getting some Reiki or other form of energy work to heal the issues. Chiron is very pronounced. Sun squaring Chiron, Jupiter quintile Chiron, Chiron retrograding at the very end of the month, pronouncing that which needs to get healed. And I think this is good energy, even though it's painful right now. And recognize that next year, when Jupiter enters Leo, it's going to be trining Neptune on July 20th, a little later in the summer. That will be phenomenal. And we've got a beautiful minor triangle of magic later this summer that is going to involve Saturn and Neptune in Aries, particularly Neptune, the dream. And Neptune is forming a sextile to Uranus in Gemini and to Pluto in Aquarius. And Uranus is building up to a trine to Pluto in Aquarius, Uranus being the modern ruler. It won't be exact, but this gets strong between August 22nd and August 29th of this year. And then they will have a couple times they meet up next summer and the next few years. This brings so many new opportunities to learn, connect, innovate. This is an aspect of magic. This is a really positive energy that will bring a lot of optimism, growth, economic opportunities, relationship opportunities, opportunities to love and have fun again. Okay? So knowing that right now the pain might be getting dug up a lot, Sun squaring Chiron, Mars meeting up with the south node of Karma. I don't even know if I mentioned that. That's happening on July 20th. That's at 9:59 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. That's going to be very difficult. That's going to be at 19 degrees of Virgo. Mars will be opposing the north node in Pisces. And that can be an aspect of self-sabotage. And Mars remains in Virgo through August 6th. It wants to clean things up. A lot of people are getting organized. they're getting things in order, they're getting rid of clutter, they're donating, they're doing gardening, they're trying to eat healthy. I'm hearing that from a lot of clients, and I've been trying to do that myself. But Mars with the South Node, it's bringing up old karmic stuff that you could feel angry about, or maybe your ego is wounded about. And Mars rules Neptune and Saturn and Aries. And so that's that new dream we're trying to build. But maybe with Saturn and Aries, you don't feel you can do it. Saturn is in its fall position in Aries. You don't feel that you can rise to the occasion, but you can and you will. And remembering that this is an opportunity of reevaluation and reassessment. And later in the summer, well, Mercury goes direct on August 11th. And on that day, Saturn forms a helpful aspect to Uranus. Those are both the rulers of Aquarius. That can bring stability to the inventive ideas that have been percolating with Uranus and Gemini and Venus in Gemini and all that's happening right now. And Chiron retrograde in Aries, again, finding the courage to be yourself and face your fallibility. I wish you a lot of luck. Take care. We've got the Sun entering Leo on July 22nd. We've got the Sun forming a sextile to Uranus on the 23rd, but Venus is building up to square Mars, and both are in Mercury-ruled signs. Mars is in Virgo, Venus is in Gemini. So a lot of reflection about old relationships. You may hear from old people from the past, old clients, old lovers, with Mercury in Leo, people with whom you worked, because Venus does rule how you earn an income, and Mercury formed that aspect to Venus at the very beginning of the retrograde story. But again, this is an opportunity to find how you shine, and you know you do. Take care. Bye.